Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
So today we're going to talk about home builder sentiment. This is new data that just came out. We just did a home builder video, I think last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
About new home construction.
Yes.
Because it's fallen for like 10 months in a row.
Mm-hmm.
But the headline of this article was home builder sentiment rises in January for the first time in a year thanks to lower mortgage rates. So you're probably saying, well, how would they know January's not over? It's not for the full month. This isn't a reading of historical January. This is a sentiment of, so they take data and then they put out a sentiment number. It comes out every month. This is just the one that came out in January.
Right. So the number comes out in January, but the survey probably happened in November, December.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. So the sentiment rose 4 points to 35 on the National Association of Home Builders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So an index is a way we measure things. What do you want to say about it?
Yeah, it's just so this specific index is a 0 to 100. 50 is average. Anything below 50 is negative. Anything above 50 is positive. So it means the reason they use an index is because they take a bunch of things and stick them into a calculator, and then a number comes out.
Right.
While the National Association of Home Builders is forecasting a decline for single-family starts this year compared to 2022, it appears a turning point for housing lies ahead. Let's talk about this. This sounds like good and bad. We have a turning point, but we're going to build less houses next year than we did last year. Why is that?
So houses take a while to build. So from the moment that a builder says, hey, I think I'm going to build more houses, until they actually break ground and sell those houses is generally at least a year, in some cases as long as 3 years, because they have to acquire the land, get permits, zoning, all that good stuff, which takes a long time. And then, of course, they have to get their plans approved and then actually break ground, get all their materials and get the labor and actually put up the house.
The other thing, too, is they had really, really cut back because of interest rates,
Mm-hmm.
but interest rates have plummeted. We're going to go over the numbers. And people are starting to come back, like quite a bit. Okay, this next chart we're going to look at, this is National Association of Home Builders Builder Sentiment. Now, what's interesting about it is, as you can see throughout, starting last year, it was at 80. It dropped. It actually dropped for 10 consecutive months, and now it's up. Now, this is probably not noise. It will probably continue to increase throughout the spring because that's what happens naturally, right?
Right.
Plus, this sentiment tends to be so many data things. It doesn't bounce around. It's not like it's going to go up and then down again. It's likely it's sort of, if we zoom back over years, you would see this thing kind of sine wave over a long period of time, but you would never have like up and down and up and down.
Right. It's a much more consistent pattern rather than consumer sentiment, which tends to be much more volatile.
Right. Yeah. This is home builder sentiment. What's interesting is we're going to look at this next chart. This is the Mortgage Bankers Association Mortgage Index. Now, this is an index. It is not interest rates. This is the intent of people to get a loan based on applications and things like that. It literally spiked in a week. Like, you can see how much this index changed. If you look all the way back over February last year, it was high, but then as interest rates went up, this dropped, and we got down to a low in about November when interest rates were at their highest. But interest rates have come down. This thing is starting to take off. We're going to go over some numbers on this. Now, Juana, some of this is seasonal, right?
It is. And, part of it is that people weren't doing a whole lot over the holidays. And now that the holidays are over, they're starting to plan their year, and their year may include purchasing a home.
Builder sentiment in the single-family housing market posted an unexpected gain in January, rising for the first time in 12 straight months. Economists had predicted a slight decline. So they're predicting a slight decline. Interest rates drop. Maybe some of this is the holidays too. But they predicted a decline, but it jumped up after 12 months of declining.
We've talked about this quite a bit in the last couple of weeks in January, and some of it is just the seasonality of it. Some of it might be noise. We think that it's probably just the foreshadowing of spring.
Yeah. Sentiment rose 4 points to 35 on the National Association of Home Builders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index. Anything below 50 is still considered negative sentiment. The metric stood at 83 in January 2022, but that's probably the highest it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Like 83 is probably the highest ever. It may have been that high in 2004 and 5, but probably in the last whatever. So 50 is probably your normal number. But interesting is it went from 31 to 35. That's like over a 10% increase.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. It means that builders have looked at the market, they've looked at the demand, they've considered interest rates, they've considered their costs, and they've decided that maybe it's time to consider building again.
Both builders and consumers are likely responding to the recent drop in mortgage rates. The average contract interest rate. Now, this is not what's posted. This is the rate people went under contract on for new home construction. On the 30-year fixed mortgage last peaked at 7.37% at the end of October, according to the Mortgage News Daily. It then fell throughout December and stood at 6.17% as of Tuesday, which is like 2 days ago.
Right.
Like, so this literally, you can see how much interest rates have dropped. They've dropped substantially.
Right.
And interest rates do affect home buying, right?
They absolutely do, because it has to do with people's mortgage payments. Now, not everybody gets a mortgage, but a good portion of Americans do still purchase homes by borrowing money from a lender.
Okay. This is the last quote. Dietz noted the nation still has a structural housing deficit of 1.5 million units and said improved affordability should increase demand. When he says improved affordability, what's he talking? Why is it more affordable?
He's talking about monthly payments, and monthly payments are obviously a large part of that is the interest payment, which is predicated upon the interest rate of the loan.
Okay, and then some is home prices have declined since the peak in June. They're still up year over year, but they're getting close to like even. Like we're getting close to a point where we're going to look year over year and they'll be zero. They basically, if you will have skipped the whole year and just stuck them together, home prices kind of go up and kind of go sideways, right?
Right.
Because if you take out the hump in the middle,
Hump being 2022.
Humping like 6 months of 2022. Okay, we said back in May that we thought the best months to buy a house as a buyer, because there would be more inventory, more choices, was October, November, December, January. We said those were the 4 best months. We also said that we thought in February people would come back. It's looking like, so here's the problem. We were wrong on this one thing. I actually thought inventory would increase, would be a little higher. But inventory is shockingly low. The amount of inventory we have right now is below a normal year's inventory, even with the high rates. I would expected more inventory. I thought it would be better for buyers to come out these last 4 months. I think it could potentially be painful if interest rates go below 6. It's going to get painful in the spring. We have a whole video we're going to do on this about mortgage rates.
And you know what's interesting? We just finished up with the Martin Luther King holiday weekend, and it was a crazy busy weekend. The open houses were packed.
Yep.
If you had a listing, you probably got multiple offers on it.
You had a listing, get multiple offers, right?
I had one.
Full price too, right?
Right. Somebody else in the office had the same experience. So it's really interesting. I really didn't expect it. The weather here in Vegas was cold. It was windy. It was really very unpleasant. So I was very surprised that this past weekend was just so busy. People were out looking. Phones are ringing. Buyers are looking. And I realize that this is anecdotal, just what's happening, in our market, and just with what's happening, obviously in very close proximity to us. But I think that may be telling of what's coming.
It's funny because we don't work with buyers, but a personal friend is coming to town to buy a house on Friday.
Right.
He's coming for the weekend, and he's going to buy a house in Summerlin. So it's interesting to be on the other side of that, calling agents, setting up, showing appointments. But it's interesting that I still think this is a good time for somebody like that who's where there's some inventory, because if we were doing this last year, it would be it would be a very frustrating experience, I think.
Well, if we were doing this last year, he wouldn't need to come out. He would just need to look online, pick houses, and we would just send offers.
Until one got accepted, right? This
Right.
time we'll be able to actually look at them before we send an offer.
Right.
I don't know if we can do that 3 months or 4 months. And what you're saying was this have to do with new home building, because they sort of go hand in hand. When people can't buy in the resale market, they jump over to the new home market.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone can't go to the new home market because if they don't have standing inventory, you have to wait. Because we have people, friends who just bought a house that they just moved into, but they went under contract like in April
Right.
of last year.
And the thing with standing inventory, remember, you don't get to pick your finishes. So you don't get to choose cabinets, flooring, colors, fixtures, any of that. It's already been picked either by a buyer that fell out or it was spec'd out by the builder. And the builders last year and the year before and really for the last 3 years, I think, they've been doing a lot of spec homes, meaning that they weren't even putting the houses up for sale until they had already chosen a lot of the finishes, and they really weren't letting the buyers choose a whole lot because they were using that as a way to control their costs because they had limited supplies. Remember, we had supply chain issues. So because they had supply chain issues, they used that reason to do all the spec homes. And if you wanted a house, then whatever the builder had picked, that's what you were going to get.
I'll say the last thing and you can wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay. Here in Las Vegas and other markets that are like Las Vegas, we are highly dependent on new construction because we're growing. We 30 to 40,000 people are coming here a year. So we have to build new housing units. And if we're not building new housing units, they get pushed into the resale market. And a lot of people come here, then like last spring, I'm sure involuntary ended up being renters. So when you look around, see a ton of construction or whatever, don't necessarily think it's overbuilt or whatever, because, I've been here since 1975 in the neighborhood I grew up in. They built my house and then all the houses across the street weren't built. And then through most of the neighborhood, they were just lots. And now when you drive through that neighborhood, it looks like it's been there for 40 years, which it has. But, since I've been here, there's always been construction. Even when there was a recession nationally, Vegas has always been growing. Matter of fact, we've grown every year but 1 year since the 60s or 70s. We had 2008, I think, was the only year. It's because all the construction workers left.
Right. So, kind of piggybacking on that, the Bureau of Land Management is releasing 1,000 acres on the northwest side of Las Vegas, and they are taking public input about releasing those 1,000 acres to be sold to the city, who will then sell it to builders to build another master plan community. So there is still building coming up in Las Vegas. This is going to be the newest community. It'll be really interesting. As we get more information, we'll go ahead and give you guys an update. If that's something that interests you, if the video that we just did interested you, if it entertained you, informed you, or in any way delighted you, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, like the video, share the video, leave us some comments, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.